The next 16 minutes, I'm going to take you to a journey that is probably the biggest dream of humanity. Understand the code of life. So for me, everything started many, many years ago when I met the first 3D printer. The concept was fascinating. A 3D printer needs three elements: a bit of information, some raw material, some energy, and it can produce any object that was not there before. I was doing physics, I was coming back home, and I realized that I actually always knew a 3D printer, and everyone does. It was my mom. So my mom takes three elements. A bit of information is between my father and my mom, in this case, raw elements and energy in the same media, that is food, and after several months produces me. And I was not existing before. So apart from the shock of my mom discovering that she was a 3D printer, I immediately got mesmerized by that piece, the first one, the information. What amount of information takes to build and assemble a human? Is it much? Is it little? How many thumb drives you can fill? Well, I was studying physics at the beginning, and I took this approximation of a human as a gigantic Lego piece. Okay? So you can imagine that the building blocks are little atoms, and there is an hydrogen here, a carbon here, a nitrogen here. So in the first approximation, if I can list the number of atoms that compose a human being, I can build it. Now, you can run some numbers, and that happens to be quite an astonishing number. So the number of atoms, the file that I will save in my thumb drive to assemble a little baby, it will actually fill an entire Titanic of thumb drives, multiplied 2,000 times. This is the miracle of life. Every time you see from now on a pregnant lady, she's assembling the biggest amount of information that you will ever encounter. Forget big data, forget anything you heard of. This is the biggest amount of information that exists. But nature, fortunately, is much smarter than a young physicist. And in 4 billion years, he managed to pack this information in a small crystal we call DNA. We met it for the first time in 1950, when Rosalind Franklin, an amazing scientist, a woman, took a picture of it. But it took us more than 40 years to finally poke inside a human cell, take out this crystal, unroll it, and read it for the first time. Well, the code comes out to be a fairly simple alphabet, 4 letters: A, T, C, and G. And to build a human, you need 3 billion of them. 3 billion. How many are 3 billion? Well, we don't really make any sense as a number, right? So I was thinking how I could explain myself better about how big and enormous is this code. But there is I'm going to have some help, and the best person that is going to help me to introduce you the code is actually the first man that's sequencing, Dr. Craig Venter. So welcome on stage, Dr. Craig Venter. Not the man in his flesh, but for the first time in history, this is the genome of a specific human, printed page by page, letter by letter. 262,000 pages of information, 450 kilograms, shipped from the United States to Canada, only thanks to Bruno Boding on stage, Lulu.com, a startup that did everything. It was an amazing feat. But this is the visual perception of what is the code of life. And now for the first time I can do something funny. I can actually poke inside it and read it. So let me take some interesting book like this one. I have an annotation. It's a fairly big book. So just to let you see what is the code of life. Thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of letters that apparently make any sense. Let's get to a specific part. Let me read it to you. AAG, AAT, ATA. Well, to you sounds mute letters, but this sequence gives the color of the eyes to Craig. I'll show you another part of the book. It's actually a little more complicated. Chromosome 14, book 132. As you might expect. ATTCTTGATT. This human is lucky, because if he will miss just 2 letters in this position, 2 letters over 3 billion, he will be condemned to a terrible disease, cystic fibrosis. We have no cure for it, we don't know how to solve it, and it's just 2 letters of difference for what we are. A wonderful book, a mighty book. A mighty book that helped me to understand and show you also something quite remarkable. Every one of you, what makes me, me, and you, you, is just about 5 million of these, half a book. For the rest, we are all absolutely identical. 500 pages is the miracle of life that you are. The rest, we all share it. So think about again, when we think we are different, this is the amount that we share.